Hey there, Dr. Mark here, and today I'm going to walk you through 5 different nutrition weekly check-ins, all under 15 minutes. That's right, when you know exactly what questions to ask and what to look for, and exactly how to respond, coaching a nutrition client shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes per week. And if this doesn't feel like you're doing enough, trust me, your clients actually like this better. But it does take practice, which is why today I'll show you how an expert nutrition coach approaches these check-ins and give you exactly what to say. No one else on the internet is teaching you how to coach nutrition clients, so let's change that.
All right, so here we go. My first client here is a male in his 50s looking to lose some weight. We've been working together for a couple of weeks now, and things are going pretty well. This is a check-in here in terms of the questions I asked to get a basic idea. This is something that comes right directly to my email once the client actually hits submit. And I see things. He reports that his protein goals were closer to the mark this week. In the past, he's had an ACL surgery, and that knee was bothering him a little bit. He's doing a bit more exercise. And it sounds like, in terms of things that are on the docket, he's got a trip to Vegas coming up this week. So I'm starting to think about, okay, here's where everything's coming from. I'm also going to pop over to his sheet and see how the actual week went objectively. And things look good. Weight's coming down he started at around 290 pounds, and he's already down to, at his lowest here, 283, as you can see at the bottom here. So the weekly trend's coming down. There's new weekly lows. Things are moving in the right direction overall. I think that some of the things that I'm pointing out, and I'm thinking about the framework around how do I go through this, take a look at things, and respond is, are there any results that I'm looking for? How well did he stick to things in terms of adherence? Where is his behavior and motivation at in terms of continuing on, pushing ahead? Do I have to make any changes? Do I got to pump him up a little bit or assure him that things are on the right track? What's coming up for him? And then make any adjustments that I need. So based on all this, it appears that things are working. Things are moving in the right direction. Weight's a little bit up and then back down. But in terms of his targets, he's sticking to things well. The biggest focus being like protein intake. You'll notice that like protein intake, based on his body weight, is quite lower than we'd want. But I think you need to keep in mind that we've already raised it quite a bit during the assessment period. And before he started, he was eating 60, 80 grams of protein per day. So at 115, he's already almost doubled that. Things are moving in the right direction. That's the thing that I'll continue to improve and build on in the future. But for now, given the fact that he's going to leave on a vacation next week, I'm going to keep these targets the same, assure him he's on the right track, give him some guidance around what to do while traveling, and then go from there. So that's what I'm going to wrap up into a check-in with him. Things are looking good. He's moving lots. He's got to be smart with his knee. But at the same time, things are moving in the right direction. And the biggest thing that he can do this week is to prepare some strategies to include more protein while on the road. But we're going to keep the targets the same. So that's what I'm going to say to this client. All right, so my second client here is a male. He's in his 30s, and he's looking to gain some muscle. This is something that he's struggled with in the past. He's eating quite a bit of food already, but we're going to put some strategies in place to continue that upward trend. And we've had some discussions around, it's summertime here, he's moving lots. Is this really the right time to be doing that? Or should we do it at a time that's a bit more conducive to lower energy expenditure, kind of work with him instead of adding more friction? So these are all the things that are going through my mind. And in this check-in, we're actually going to make some adjustments to food targets just to make it a little bit easier for him to follow. I think the one thing to think about is when we're making adjustments to food levels, it isn't always going to be based on what the science says. It's also going to be what makes it easier for the client to actually stick to. So in terms of what he's describing here, how his week went, he's been sick in the last couple of weeks. He's getting over things, but things are moving in the right direction. He's gaining some strength back. He has mentioned that his appetite is a problem in terms of eating enough food. Is this that, some of the things that he's doing, it isn't easy to eat enough food and there's stuff that we can do? Or is it like the sickness or the stuff? We're going to dig a little bit deeper around that and go from there. And he's moving lots and we're doing those things. I think that's the biggest thing, that in terms of the framework, we're thinking about results, behavior, motivation, as well as feedback cues. And I didn't touch on that too much about the last client, is that how is he describing things are going? And it sounds like hunger is an issue. As people that have, historically dieted and are even good at this stuff, we've been working together for a couple of months here. They know what they need to be doing in terms of eating more protein, eating more nutrient-dense foods, but this might actually go against his goals. It might actually be, conflicting for him if he's eating quite a bit of food that's filling him up and not giving him a chance to eat more calorie dense foods that'll help him hit his targets and fall in line with his goals. So we got to keep that in mind as well. So taking a look at how his actual week went here as well. Weight is more or less staying the same, but coming down in the last little bit. So there's a trend that it's actually coming down, which is odd given the fact that 185 to 183 pounds, on average 184, but eating 4,000 plus calories. You can see here these numbers at the bottom are actually steps. He's moving quite a bit. So what I'm thinking in terms of his normal numbers, last week we played around with what can we do to push the food levels? Can we add in a high day? Didn't seem to work all that well in terms of adherence. We got some days untracked, although he had mentioned that he ate quite a bit on those days. What I'm thinking here is that given his food levels, we're pushing the carbs to get there, and that was more or less his preference. But I think some of the things that are underlooked here based on what he's described is, can we add in some trail mix? Can we add in some nuts and nut butter and things that are palatable but will contain a lot of calories and push? Can he think about juice drinks and green drinks and things that are going to add 80 grams of carbs a pop with just through liquid and not filling them up? So that's kind of what some of the feedback and advice that I'm going to give him is that hey, we're going to make some changes to your food targets, work the fat up, keep carbs more or less the same. It looks like there's room for protein to come up, although at a certain level eating more protein is going to fill them up, but the goal is overall more food, so we're going to focus on that. But what can we do to continue to push things here? I think fat is the ticket, and it's going to make it so that he can get a lot of calories with not a lot of volume. So we're going to make these changes, shoot for these numbers, keep the food level going up. You'll see that this is a slight calorie bump as well, but with the right food choices, this should be a little bit easier to hit and not impact his appetite all that much. Might allow him to eat more food. So these are going to be my suggestions for this client. Third client here, and she's a woman in her 40s. She's been working with me on some fat loss goals. We've been working together for almost 14, 15 weeks now. And we're actually pushed the leanness quite a bit and starting to ramp food back up and doing a little bit of a reverse diet. She's trying to, assess, is she happy with her leanness? Should we push things a little bit further? But over the last 2-3 weeks, we've ramped up her food levels a little bit, eating 200, 300 more calories per day. I'm going to fill you in on how things are going. So she's also a vegetarian client, or at least has struggled with her protein intake in the past and getting enough protein. And we've really focused on working up her protein target. She started at maybe 65 grams, having some issues with just getting enough of that. And over the last little bit, we've been able to work it up to 95 grams. She's starting to realize that she does quite a bit of training. She's building some strength in her upper body, and it's surprising to her. It's not surprising to me, but it's surprising to her, and it's just cool to see that kind of payoff. Other than that, she's had a week where she doesn't feel like she adhered to things too well. Had some extra, some drinks, some social eating in terms of nachos at the movies. She feels like her weight's, moving up outside of, things being ramped up here in terms of the food levels. If I look at her actual numbers here, if we take a look at the weekly average compared week to week, it's very, very similar. So I'm not overly concerned about that, although the trend is over the last little bit for things to come up. But overall, she ate 150, 200 calories more per day with these increased targets. And that, obviously going to help her with strength, but also it could be one of those things where she is now, holding a little bit more water weight due to glycogen, that type of thing, some saltier foods with the social eating, that kind of thing. I'm not overly concerned about it yet. She knows that she could tighten things up within these food targets. So to me, the move is, hey, let's just dial in the consistency, keep everything the same, and then go from there. I think things are moving in the right direction here. I think we just got to reassure that we don't need to make any drops or any adjustments like that. You just need to tighten things up and think about all the positive things that are happening. So that's what I'm going to express to her. If you're thinking about the thing that I'm using right now, and this is the actual technology that I use to talk over some of these check-ins, is a software called Loom. Does some video capture, allows you to talk over things. Once I hit end here, it's just going to send me an actual link that I can pass along to the client. So I'm going to do this in an email response with that link inside of it with a paper trail of what I've talked about, so they don't have to watch this back over, but it's going to allow me to deliver a really personable service and work really, really well for my clients. If you want to check out Loom, the first link in the description here is going to give you a chance to sign up for it. It's a service that I use. I think it saved me last month. It said it saved me 14 meetings worth of content super streamlined and effective. It allows me to keep these check-ins at around 3 minutes, and this helps really streamline my business. So you should check it out. All right, moving on. We got our fourth client here and our fourth check-in. This has been good. I feel good about this. It feels like almost like take your kids to work day, and you're seeing the inside of me doing my job, which is a lot of fun. This is a client that I've worked with for 6 years. 6 years we've been at it. That's just a testament to, number one, you don't need to teach your client everything they know and then release them into the wild and they have all these habits and everything built up forever and they don't need you anymore. Some people like the accountability and guidance, and this client, and strangely enough, to build on that, hasn't checked in about a month, although he knows that, we do weekly check-ins and when to check in and that type of thing. He just had a competition. I think it's very normal after a competition just not have that thing right in front of your face that is driving you and, driving your actions and that type of thing. And I think he just kind of like fell off track. And I think the most important thing is the onus is on the client to check in and drive this forward because they need to want it more than you. But there's also always a time and a place, and there's a time and a place to be super bang on and laser focused on the outcome and the action steps, and also a time for a little bit less dedication and a little bit less more flexibility. And I think that's what he just went through here. In terms of it sounds like weight's up a little bit with just like a bit more food and that type of thing. I think the biggest thing that I'm going to say is that there's always a time and a place for this type of stuff. And he just needs to get back on track. And here's what it would look like in those periods. I want to give him, assurance that I'm here stuff and what to do to find some balance, although time off is good, but find some balance within that so that, he doesn't find himself in a situation where he wants to go so far in either direction. The more balanced we can be, the better. But for now, the biggest thing being we're going to get back on track with similar targets, a slight deficit to keep him moving towards his baseline level of weight that he needs to compete, build some consistency, and then go from there would be the biggest thing. And that's what we're focusing on. And I think one of the biggest take-home lessons around just checking in with clients, especially if they haven't, touch base with you in a while, is that the onus is on them to do that. And that's totally, as someone that, cares about this stuff, you might feel like, I got to chase people, I got to do this or that. Know that they need to drive it forward, and that's what's going to allow them to change and keep up with these things long term. So those are my thoughts around that. All right, so this is our fifth client here, the last one we're going to go through. This is a client we've been working together for a couple of weeks. She's looking to get leaner and things are moving in the right direction. The first week, she didn't notice a big change in the scale. It actually, weight stayed the same, which we know is pretty common. It's not always going to change. Sometimes we make some changes, get a little bit of water weight, that type of thing, but adjusting to things, got to be patient. Things are moving in the right direction. She's feeling better overall. And the biggest thing being non-scale related changes. We think about results. We're thinking about her clothes are fitting better. Things are moving in the right direction. So this is really positive. Again, to kind of recap the check-in process and what we're thinking about results. We're thinking about behavior motivation. Where are they coming from? How are they feeling about things? We're also thinking about how well do they stick to things? What kind of feedback are we getting around energy levels and hunger and how clothes are fitting, as well as is there anything, coming up as we need to make any, changes, that type of thing. That question's super important to ask because we want to know, do they have a birthday party coming up? Are they leaving on vacation? What do we have to plan for? The more information we get at this point before we do the check-in, the easier it's going to be for us to respond. Based on these things and how things are looking on the objective front, again, I talked about her weight coming down, a full pound here, things moving in the right direction, doing a much better job of hitting your protein intake, which is just one of the most important things here. Things look good, and we're going to keep the food levels the same here. I feel confident about that. Things are moving in the right direction. She had mentioned that, in terms of stuff that she's having trouble with, she cooks a lot of her own food, which is fantastic. That's one of the most important things you can do. When things don't have barcodes and stuff, it can be harder to track. It can be harder to manage. So the advice that I'm going to give her in terms of just assurance moving forward is do the best you can with what you have, and good things will happen. In terms of guesstimating is just fine. It's working, right? You're not trying to be the most accurate at tracking. You're trying to use tracking as a tool to move in the right direction. So it is working. As well as if she's making a bunch of batch meals, similar recipes, just create the recipe once and split it up accordingly, and then track it that way relatively each time, and good things will happen. So things are, moving in the right direction. She had mentioned that the more she eats protein, And even though she feels hydrated and drinking quite a bit of water, she's feeling there's probably some changes in her bowel movements, maybe getting the back backed up. So the only other thing that I'm going to suggest this week is that she takes a closer look at her fiber intake. We start tracking that and then move forward from there. So those are my thoughts on this one. And I hope you guys found this process of actually checking in helpful.
And there it is, folks, how to do nutrition coaching check-ins with 5 examples. I hope you found this useful. As great as all those tips are though, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition coaching business, then next thing I'll have you do, check out this video I've linked to right here. We went through some examples today of check-ins, which is great, but I wanna show you the step-by-step process to create your own weekly nutrition coaching check-in. What to say, what questions to ask, exactly how to respond. This is gonna be the absolute best resource for that. Check it out right here, and I'll see you in the next video.